All right, we're here to give you a review today of the 2019 Axis A22. We've been running boats, I have, for 25 years now, and I just thought it'd be good to inform you as to the pros and cons to this boat.
So Axis is the it's about an $80,000 boat. This is the A22. I don't know if you can see that here. The A22, 22 feet long. I guess they call it kind of an economy.
Yeah, this is the economy version of Malibu's boats. Malibu would be your upper end, over $100,000 for this boat. Same hull design, same motor, same transmission.
It's actually manufactured by Malibu.
Correct. And so just want to kind of give you a review. When we first got this boat, at first glance, you're like, wow, man, nice color pattern, nice schemes, nice everything there. But when it comes down to the details, they really lack a lot in paying attention to detail. And we're going to point that out in a few different pictures, as well as some of the previous video that we have from the boat.
And we've been running Axis for a long time now. What number is this here?
This is our 7th Axis boat that we purchased. And so this is by no means our first boat. We've owned Nautique. We've also demoed Mastercraft, and actually I have personally owned Ski Supreme as well. So it's certainly not our first time owning. We typically put anywhere from 150 to 175 hours on a boat every year, and we try and keep those hours to a minimum by shutting it off as much as possible. No idle time on our motors. So putting in a lot of hours, but doing a lot of tubing, skiing, wake surfing, wakeboarding, slalom skiing behind it. So doing everything behind it. And for some stuff, it seems to do fairly well. But when it comes down to little details, when you're spending $80,000, thought we should give an honest review and show a few details that really need to get fixed.
And 7th boat, like we used to be pretty happy with Axis. Like it used to be a nice boat, but last couple times we've traded in and gotten the new and better version, it just seemed like things were going downhill. You're paying more money for less quality.
We would rather go back to a couple of models previous, actually, than the one that we're currently owning here. And that's actually why this will be our last year with this boat. We've only owned it for 1 year, and we're making a switch this year.
So right away, some of the stuff on the exterior you hear, big things are just some of the little details that for this much money shouldn't be this way. Like you can see this rub rail here. There's no. You'd think it would be all matched up and pretty, and yeah, I know there's some marks on here from the bumpers and everything, but for this amount of money,
actually one of the good fits. There's several other fits on the boats that are much worse than that. And a lot of their screw heads, we actually had to try and tighten them down ourselves because they just stick out all the way around the rub rail, and it just shouldn't be the way the boat comes from the factory. It's just not a great report with the boat the way it came. When ours came from the dealership, and we did have a few different problems with the dealership, we had 3 different things that were left undone. One was the seat cover on the inside was never bolted down, and we actually had to screw the seat pad down on the inside and the front. It was never taken care of.
It is just setting loose, like you can just pick it up and fall out.
And then there was the rudder adjustment, which allows you to do some minor tuning for your actual rudder on the back. Those screws were just sitting there loose, could have fallen off. Thankfully didn't on our ride back to the property here. And then we ended up with one incident, which ended up being a safety risk. On the back end, you've got your surf tube, which brings your exhaust down into the water. And that actually had a very sharp point on the bottom. We ended up having to send 2 kids off to the hospital to get stitches in order to get that taken care of. So we ended up filing and taking care of those issues ourselves. But just disappointed with the overall aesthetics on the outside, just not paying attention to details upon delivery. And like you said, for an $80,000 boat, should pay attention to details.
So we're gonna walk around and show you a couple of these things here.
This one by far is the worst of the alignment, and it was like that from the first day we got it from the manufacturer. One of the big safety concerns that we had was after getting it, it's nice to have this for the exhaust. Stainless steel pipe comes out, diverts your exhaust down when you're surfing. which we thought would be a great feature to have. But the reality is they didn't file off the point on the front end here, and so it was really sharp. We ended up sending 2 kids to the hospital to get stitches from that, and then filed it off and ground off that sharp point ourselves. This is also kind of a real disappointment. It was advertised as a power wedge, and with a power wedge, you'd think, hey, it's going to power down. No, it's still manual, and with the pipe in the way, it's actually hard to reach through the latch and get down there. And the latch becomes an even bigger disappointment because the latch comes loose. So you have to manually open up this hatch in order to be able to get down in. And this gets really loose because a lot of water gets thrown up through there. And this catch on the other side has now been replaced twice from the dealership in order to try and get this cover to stay in place. So
yeah, this just jiggles loose over time and spreads out. The screws just thread out, and you can see this here, like this is still loose. So
and even this, after that's dealer installed, that's as tight as they put it, and so I can guarantee you, in just a matter of a few hours of out surfing, riding along tubing, this gate will be back loose once again. The dealer did add something which was kind of surprising to us as we took it in to have it winterized. They added a ladder on the back end for us. But my honest opinion on this ladder is it's just going to be in the way, and more than likely you're going to have water spraying up off from that.
So with this latch up here, if you're ever idling, you can just hear it. Like you can just hear it because your exhaust is coming down here, out of here. It comes straight up here so the whole time.
It bubbles the back end.
Yeah. So, and the exhaust, you can, on the U.S. Coast Guard site, you can actually go and file reports for safety issues. So this was one of the ones that I filed for. I don't know if anything ever came of it, but if they look into it, they can actually make a factory recall. They can force the manufacturer to do a recall.
I can demonstrate how hard it is to reach down there and manually open that. So I've got the cover off. You have to imagine I would have to be in the water at this point in order to be able to reach in this way. But even with my hand in here, you have to be able to reach in and get both sides in order to be able to drop this down. The same then is true once it's all the way down. Now I'm in the lake, boat's floating, and I want to be done for the day. I have to reach all the way back in to pick that up, to pull it all the way back out. So it's just not a simple thing. So when you see power wedge, think, no, there's no power at all. I'm going to have to do a lot of manual work to get that up and down.
It's very, very deceptive how they term it, how it's labeled. When we took delivery of this, we went around and there were a few things we noticed. On the hull down here, you can see there's just a few nicks down here.
A few nicks on that side and the scratches on this side.
This was here on the day we took delivery. And it's just
already scratched into the gel coat.
Scratched up. And we got pictures on the day we towed this home.
The motor in here, for the most part, was reliable. Unfortunately, as the summer progressed, we were actually sent a letter as well as a phone call instructing us not to use the boat because there was something that with the fuel system, an O-ring or something with the fuel pump that made it not usable. But when you stop and think through, you only have so much time to use it in the summer. It was very disappointing to then hear back that they were more than 2 weeks out from being able to repair the boat. We continued to use it over those 2 weeks. Thankfully, we didn't have any issues.
But when you're paying, like if you buy a car for $80,000, you think, okay, maybe we'll go in, they'll give us a loaner for a few days, and then we'll get it back and we'll get back at it. But that's not how it works.
We were just instructed not to use the boat and wait for the time when we could bring it in and get it fixed. And like I said, that was at least 2 weeks out.
And we operate this every day, usually 4 or 5 hours a day. We run rides for kids, so it's kind of important that we have it here and running. Anything else on the outside?
I think that's it for the outside. A few nice features that actually do come on the boat. The pop-in cleats. I don't even know that those are standard. One feature that it used to have that it doesn't have anymore is the dual gas fill-up. I believe that's on the Malibu, but it's not on the Axis, and you would think they could include that or even add that for an optional feature, and it was never offered to us, but it would be really nice to have a dual fuel. That way it doesn't matter which way you're pulled up to the dock. You'd be able to put fuel in the boat. All right, so here we are inside this Axis A22, and I'm going to show you a few of the features, both that we like and don't like. The little divider shield is kind of nice. It does come equipped with heat, which is really nice for those cool mornings when you're out. The one actually snorkels out from underneath the seat. You can pull it out and direct the heat where you want
And
it.
that was different from the that was new this year. They rerouted that. So there used to be one right up in here, and now it's
Underneath the driver's
right
seat,
here.
and that's a lot nicer
And
feature.
there was one that came down onto the driver's seat, and they moved that down
To the
to
side.
the side there. And I'm not sure what the reasoning was behind that, but that one I think they had to fix twice because stuff bumps into it and shoes or whatever, so the little flanges just snap right off.
The biggest issue that the new seat has that the old seat never had. The old seat used to actually pivot and twist so that you could turn to the side, as well as the little booster that allows the seats to flip up, allowing you a little bit better view as you're riding along. But the biggest complaint that I've got about this seat is it's a total pain in the butt, because when you sit on it, you don't have to be anybody big. You actually sit down on the seat, and that hinge point comes up and sticks you right in the butt. And
So go ahead and sit on there.
anybody that wants to ride in here does not want to get poked in the butt the entire time you're driving the boat. So as you can tell here, like literally, I'm not a big guy, and the whole time I'm riding, I'm getting jabbed in the butt the whole time and stopping to think through waves and going up and down. It's just not comfortable. And we did ask about this to see if that was going to get fixed, and they said not for 2020. So another reason.
I don't understand. But
And the seat used to swivel and turn out of the way. They told us that was the reason for this new ergonomic design, so that you could sit like I'm sitting here. But I can tell you the old seat was more comfortable than the new one.
Yeah, I
This one
understand.
has no adjustments.
So it used to be it just came down, the side just came down like this. And so now they added this cutout here to swing your leg over, which I get. It's better than putting your leg way up here, how it used to be, but the other one did swivel. And I don't know how much or how often I just swivel the seat over, and I just put my feet up right here. If I'm waiting for kids, waiting for a ride, I just swivel up, prop the feet up. And this one, oh man, that's probably the feature that I hated the most. What they redid with the seat. It was very disappointing to me.
It's very bad. Also, if you've never driven an Axis A22 while surfing, most of the time you're going to end up spending your time driving, standing up like this so that you can see over the bow and actually be able to see where you're going. Otherwise, the bow rise is so significant, and it doesn't matter how many people you have in the boat. You've got the wedge down, you've got the ballast tanks filled, and you're doing about 10 miles an hour, which is perfect for surfing, and it puts out a decent wake behind it. You cannot see over the front bow of the boat if you're sitting down in the seat.
It's terrible.
Even with the boost,
So you
seat
gotta
belt,
have the bolster seat up for even regular driving.
and as soon as you comes to surfing, you literally have to stand up and drive the whole rest of the time standing up in the boat in order to be able to see over the bow. So just not ideal for wanting to be able to be out surfing all day long.
The ignition cylinder was also something we had problems with.
Yeah,
And we've had problems with it past models. The 2017 model, we had issues. It would loosen up. So you put the key in and you try to turn it, the whole ignition cylinder turns. So if you're out driving, you want to shut your boat off for any reason at all, the whole ignition cylinder turns with your key. So you can't turn it
Rather
off.
than
You
shutting
gotta
off.
reach up under behind
and hold on to it.
grab the cylinder so you can turn your key. And this one, it was really easy to get to because the plastic panel underneath here was cracked and broke and fell off.
That fell off within less than 50 hours of the boat being out on the lake. And our lake, we don't get a lot of rough, choppy water, so most of the choppy water was created by this boat, driving around circles and whatever else, pulling inner tubes. But the paneling shouldn't be falling off the boat in 50 hours. That's pretty sad.
Yeah, when I hear nuts falling off of bolts and tingling around on the floor, that's a problem. I don't know how many times I've had to tighten these up. They'll just come loose. So,
and the same thing, the system for supporting the tower on here is not a great design. Keep in mind, if you're going to be putting this on a lift, you're going to be raising and lowering the tower all the time. And you've got to make sure that you keep track of these 4 manual turn-in knobs. The previous boat, I actually liked the system better. You had to be careful with it so you didn't pinch your finger. They had a latch mechanism that you could lock and unlock, but at least that didn't have to worry about falling into the lake. These don't float, so make sure you get a couple extras from the dealer if you pick this boat up.
Yeah, they switched on the 2017 version. They switched to that latch, so it was literally just a hook and clip. And then for some reason they moved back to this manual screw-in system, and I don't know why. I hate it.
There is a fair amount of seating on the boat as well as storage underneath, but a note from the previous boat to this current one, the seats underneath are now plastic, and they have a tendency even in one season to start flexing. If you take a side shot of this one, you can already tell that there's already a swale in it, and that's literally from people sitting on the seat riding along in the boat, and it's sagging down over time. It's no longer solid like it used to be because it is just plastic.
And we did notice throughout the summer when we got the boat, like the cushions were nice and soft and fluffy. Now, if you go to sit down, if you go to kneel on it, I mean, if any of you have had knee surgery, which both of us have, you go to kneel on it, you can feel how hard it is. So over the summer, it's definitely compressed. It's nowhere near the thickness and fluffiness that it was when we got it.
And maybe Malibu's better. I don't know. We haven't driven the Malibu, but the Axis, they definitely cheapened out on the seats, and it shows. One of the other things that's a royal pain trying to get into the back storage, you've got these great compartment doors, which do open up, and you can slide stuff through. For us, most of the time we had ballast bags in the back just for surfing. But once you close this door, there's no way to get the door back open. You have to sit here and reach and pull on the actual seat itself to be able to get it open. They used to have a loop that was attached here so that you could pull it out, but evidently that was too easy, and this is a better system. So
yeah, so now it's literally almost impossible to
when
get
you
it
have
open.
wet hands, it's really hard to get it back open.
It's a lot easier to just hop over to the back, and
The easier access is to crawl over to the back end of the boat and then reach underneath and lift it up.
which you shouldn't have to do.
You shouldn't have to crawl out of your boat to get your boat hatch to open up.
Back to the ignition. So that one, it actually broke off, and that's the other safety issue that I reported to the Coast Guard. So this whole cylinder, which behind, and they did actually put a new one on. The whole cylinder literally snapped off. So I'm out there. I don't think I was driving at the time, but it just dropped right out. And the dealer wasn't much help. A lot of the problems we had with this boat, the dealer wasn't very helpful with, which is another reason we're going away from the Axis. So they gave us the new ignition cylinder. You'd think they would have replaced it for us, but they gave us the part, and so I installed the new ignition cylinder myself.
And keep in mind, we're not even an hour away from the dealership, so it just doesn't seem like a long distance to have to travel to get some service on your boat. They said this is the first year we've owned it, brand new. We received it in May, and most of these problems we were having right away in June. Less than 50 hours on the boat.
Let me just show. So the system for that panel underneath here, it's literally, I don't know if you can see it with the lighting, but there's one bolt there and one bolt there. Or actually, those are nuts. They screw onto a threaded bolt. So that's all it is. So it'll start by the front coming loose and just hanging down, and then over time and with waves, like the holes around that bolt just literally snap and break.
The surf gate does work okay on it. It is not as fast as we would like for switching from one side to the other. Every now and then the cruise control would also just lock, and you couldn't get it to come on or off, or the surf gate would get locked in position and wouldn't allow you to switch from left to right. And you'd have to turn the ignition off completely, then fire the system back up in order to get it to reset. Minor frustration, but over time I don't think it's going to get better when this is happening, like I said, in the first 50 hours of the boat. We just dealt with it for the rest of the summer because our service wasn't what we had hoped for.
And it did have a pretty nice wave, and we ran fat sacks in it. So how many extra gallons was that?
So if you add the extra fat sacks, we added an extra 700 pounds each side for the back end, plus the factory ballast that already comes on this, which is 400 for the back end, and I believe it's 1,100 for the center, but I could be wrong on those numbers. But it does okay, but if you're running with just a few guys, you're definitely going to want to add the additional fat sacks in the back.
And there is no front ballast, which
there's no front ballast. There's an option for one.
There is a bow button on the control.
But from everything that we could find online, you would have to do a bag that literally sits on the seats, and we didn't see any good reviews for a ballast bag sitting on the front seats. That would have eliminated any front seating for the time that we had it hooked up. So we decided not to go with that.
Here, they got rid of the depth meter.
They eliminated the depth finder on the boat itself. It used to read out on your dash what your depth was, but evidently that component must have cost too much, so they eliminated it, at least on the model that we have. And we're trying to get the same boat that we had the previous year, so not quite sure why that was eliminated.
So they keep taking things off and keep raising the price, and I'm not sure why. The speakers are so. Nothing special about them.
And if you don't watch your package carefully, you'll only end up with 4 speakers. The front speakers, they just throw some covers over. They're not actual speakers. So do watch out for your package. If you want stuff on the tower and that, you're going to have to request everything special because it does not come fully equipped. It comes pretty base, and that's for over $80,000 on the boat itself. The front speakers themselves, if you look at them here, they look like you've got a speaker in there. But if you drive down at all, which this one's now stuck on there, the cover itself just kind of taps on, and so multiple times we actually had this cover. You can see it's kind of hanging half on and half off. There's no speaker in there, and so this is their cheap cover that they put on to try and cover up where a speaker should be rather than just including a speaker. Speakers are pretty cheap. I would have just put in 2 more speakers.
The cup holders, too, were also an issue.
The cup holders on this model, all of them are loose.
They just pop right out.
And so be careful on windy days. A lot of times these literally will go flying out. Or if you are out riding around in the lake, a lot of times you have to be careful because the wind will catch them and suddenly your cup holder's now flying out.
Or trailering it. Like all of the cup holders on the boat. I think there's a good number of them. I think there's 17.
They're all loose.
15 or 17. They're all loose. So for us, we got to drive back to the dealer every time we got a problem, and
go get a few new cup holders.
There's an hour there, an hour back, and your cup holders they could just be gone.
The open bow changed on this boat. It had been walked through, which this is still considered walk through, but they had actually had this open in the front end. Now they've closed it off and relocated your batteries up front. Some pros, some cons to that. So your dual batteries are up front. rather than being up underneath the passenger seat, which in some ways was nice. But as you can tell from the seats themselves, you can tell how much this seat is actually rubbing on the framework underneath the boat, which is a little shocking considering the number of hours that are on it.
So this was the cushion right here.
This is the front cushion that wasn't even attached. When we picked the boat up from the manufacturer, I'm not sure what they were doing prior to us picking it up, but for whatever reason, the screws that actually adhere this one to the fiberglass frame of the boat, it wasn't even installed. It was loose and the screws were sitting to the side. So just take a good look over your boat when you go to pick it up from the dealership, because you don't want to have to be the one that has to fix your boat before you go take it out for the first time on the lake.
And now this is the access to the driver console here.
To get up
With the
underneath.
new change, it used to be this panel. This panel was the one you could unbolt and get into everything under there. So if you've got to replace your heater core or anything under there, this was the way. But now this is just solid fiberglass.
In some ways, I think that may be better, because a couple of our previous Axis boats did have a little bit of a vibration problem, and so that was a little bit nicer to have that as a solid panel across. I think that helped stiffen the boat up a little bit, but we'll have to wait and see for whoever else owns this in the future to see how long that lasts.
They did change your cubby here. So it used to be kind of a raised system here. You open your
Door down.
Now, I mean, it looks aesthetically pleasing. It's a lot smaller, I find, and it's the hardest thing to open it.
Yeah, to get access to it is not easy.
You'd think you could just push the button down and pop up. No,
That's not the case.
it's actually very stiff, and in the summer, if you can tell here, like this edge actually catches right on here, so it gets really stiff and very difficult to open.
One of the features we thought was going to be useful was this sliding bench seat. If I can get it to move. Slides forward, locks into position here so that you could turn and face the back. The hard part is it eliminates a lot of the seating on the side that's already here. So we hardly ever use that, even when we had the boat fully packed out. It just wasn't a feature that we found to be useful.
Once in a while, if we had a videographer or something, once in a while they'd like to sit here, but a lot of times they like to just kneel down right here and stabilize on the back sun deck there.
One thing that it is unfortunate that Axis hasn't figured out is a way to get in your boat without stepping on your seats. You pretty much have to step on the side rail, which intentionally ends up scuffing up the sides of your boat. And then your first step, unless you want to jump down into the middle, you end up stepping on a seat every time. That's not going to help the seats last any longer. I hope you found this review to be helpful to you. Just trying to be honest about the boat and its features. And like I said, it's not that the motor, when it's running, doesn't perform well and you can't surf behind it.
Doesn't.
We certainly enjoyed times out on the lake.
Had a lot of good times.
Tubing, surfing, and wakeboarding. But just thought we'd be honest with a few of the changes that they've made.
We're just really frustrated, and we see I still like their page on Facebook. I'm not sure why, but I see all the ads, and their slogan theme is centered on you, and it is definitely not. It's all centered on keeping their costs down
and making sure they put enough money back in their pocket. This boat, they definitely cheapened up a lot of things. We owned the previous model. We had it for 2 years. This is not a better buy from when we bought it in 2017. So just keep that in mind as you go out and shop for your boat. Make sure you know what you're getting and pay attention to details.
Hey guys, new boat here, 2019 Nautique GS22. If you like the review on the Axis and you want us to review this one, just drop a comment.